The Game.
A Cromwell media station.
Discussing the big sports stories of the weekend. This is Michelle and Junnie. With Michelle Knezovic and Junnie Riddle. Presented by Superbook Sports on 102.5 and 106.3. The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Happy Saturday, Nashville. Welcome into Michelle and Junnie on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Michelle Knezovic, Junnie Riddle, Nick Frazier with us live from our Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Game studios this morning. We want to hear your thoughts all show long. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about. The Nashville Predators have fired head coach John Hines and hired Andrew Brunette as their new head coach, their fourth head coach in the franchise's history. And actually, he scored the first ever goal for the Nashville Predators on their first ever team. Happy Saturday, guys. Junnie, how are we doing this morning?
Doing real good. I got some friends coming in town. I think we're going to grab some lunch. Also had another friend here locally graduate as a firefighter to join the Nashville Fire Department. So I was there, and Mike Vrabel was also in attendance yesterday. So, me, my dad being a firefighter, was really proud of my friend for graduating. So shout out to Tierra for becoming the latest firefighter here in Nashville. So great stuff going on this weekend, and yeah, I'm ready to get kicked off on this show. We got a lot of good stuff to talk about.
Well, congratulations to everybody who's out there who works for this community. It's quite an honor to do that. Frazier, how are we doing this morning?
Doing pretty well. Got some good sleep. I got 5 hours of sleep last night, not 3. So we are doing quite well today.
Oh, he got his beauty sleep in 5 hours. Whew.
I did. There are no bags under my eyes.
9, guys.
Frazier runs on no sleep. I mean, like, this guy is like an Energizer bunny.
You are, Frazier. You're an early morning guy, but also a late night guy.
Yeah, as a kid, my mom would always have to go to work early, like 5 a.m.-ish, and of course, I'd wake up at 4:30, 5 in the morning. She'd drive me to school, so appreciate my mom helping me with the morning routine. It kind of, kindled me to be who I am today, I guess. So thanks, Mom.
We love moms. Thanks to all the moms out there today. But guys, we've had a busy week in the sports world. I obviously mentioned it when we introduced the show today. John Hines out as the Predators coach, Andrew Brunette in as the new Nashville Predators coach. It was a very quick turnaround. It was an interesting way that we found out regarding it. I'll definitely have some thoughts on that. But, the Morning Brew, we kind of just like to run through our top headlines of the week. So that obviously takes the crown as the biggest headline this week. I knew we thought that we would get, a decision made on if John would be continuing with the Predators through this season. But obviously, as I mentioned earlier this week, Barry Trotz and the Nashville Predators announced that John Hines would be let go and they would be moving forward with Andrew Brunette. Junnie, just first off, what were your initial reactions on that news earlier this week?
My initial reaction was it's about time. I had come on this show the past couple weeks, and it had been a topic, whether it was with you or whether it's been with Keyser. And I was just sitting here thinking, like, all these rumors and speculations, and Elliot Friedman goes on Caroline, Willie, and D-Mays every single week, and it just seemed like, they're kind of, weighing their options. They're talking to some people, seeing what they can do. And for me, I was just, like, relieved that finally they made their decision. And I'm not going to sit here and kind of go over, the feelings about that because they've moved on, they've done it. But yeah, I was just happy that they finally got it over with, that they finally got their new guy in. I liked the decision to move on. I understand the decision to move on. But for me, the whole timing aspect of it, I still don't agree with, because fortunately for John Hines, he is now kind of getting other opportunities because of connections that he has elsewhere. But that might have not been the case, and it could have really kind of screwed him over in the long run for him to be kind of held on so long after the season has ended for the Predators. So, but good decision by the Preds. I like the direction, and I think it was a really good move by.
The offseason will have to be made. I mean, the NHL draft is about 1 month away. It'll be in Nashville at Bridgestone Arena, and the NHL Awards starting on June 26th. So we're less than a month away from that. I figured that we would be hearing something soon. You know, the NHL Stanley Cup postseason or playoffs, our final two teams are here. So, you know, a lot of things can be slowed down because of all of those other factors. But then at the same time, you need a coach. You need to make a decision and you have to move fast during these times. I do know that, you know, we've heard from Elliot Friedman, other people on NHL Network, just kind of don't agree really with how the Predators went about this, right? I mean, we look at the Washington Capitals. They let Peter Laviolette go at the end of the season, right after they didn't make the playoffs. And, you know, you see that statement of these two parties have decided to move different ways, or the Rangers coach, right? As soon as they got knocked out by the Devils in the postseason, we've decided to part ways. I believe that, you know, it was time to move on to a new coach, a new voice. You have a new GM. I do believe it was time. Barry Trotz had his guy, yes. But when you have people interviewing for your job and John Hines is still your coach, I just don't know why you just don't fire him.
I completely agree with that sentiment. And, you know, I was kind of, you know, teetering on the line on whether or not they should fire him, just because we saw what he did at the end of the year with some of those young developmental players. And like I said, if they moved off of him at the end of the year, like as soon as the season was over, you know, new GM Barry Trotz comes in. He wants to go out and get his coach. I mean, it's completely understandable. You know, John Hines didn't really do much here in Nashville, if I'm being frank. You know, like, I think that the fact that they, you know, held on to him for so long, and it's kind of panned out, like we can kind of move past it and not sit here and cry over spilled milk. But, you know, if he didn't get opportunities, I just think it would have been a little bit better. But I also have to think of it from John Hines' perspective, though, as to, you know, Barry Trotz has kind of come out and said that, you know, they were, you know, communicating with John Hines that this is what it was. If I'm John Hines and I'm a professional coach and I'm the head coach here, this is my title. I have not been fired yet. And the GM comes to me and says, you know, we're going to kind of look and weigh out our options and see if we can get somebody better. But if not, we want to keep you here. As a head coach in this league, you have to be at least somewhat prideful. Why would you go along with that? If you know you're on that thin of ice, why are you holding on to a job and with an organization that doesn't necessarily believe in you? I feel like if somebody came to me and I'm in a position and they say, you know, you're not doing a good enough job and we're going to start to look to replace you, but if we can't find anybody better, then we're going to hold on to you. I'm going to be like, no, man, screw you. If you don't believe in me, you don't think I'm doing enough good job when I'm giving my livelihood to this place, I want to get out of here. Like, no, like I'll go find some place that actually appreciates me. The fact that, you know, Barry Trotz and them, you know, were open and they've come out since hiring Andrew Burnett and said that, you know, they've kept that level of communication with John Hines. The fact that John Hines didn't say, nah, forget that. Let's just go our own ways, mutually depart, and let me go find a different opportunity elsewhere. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, and it kind of just shows me of the level of desperation that maybe John Hines had to keep his job, and maybe the fact that he had this bit of unknown onto whether or not he would get another opportunity. It's just, I don't know. The whole situation is just a little bit baffling to me.
Well, I think that's kind of a little bit of a leap there, Junnie. I mean, you know, at the end of the day, it's very easy to sit here and say, will you just walk away? I mean, there's only 32 head coaching jobs in the NHL. I mean, it's the highest level of coaching. I mean, there's only 32, right, in the NFL. So, you know, it's really easy to say, oh, I'm just going to walk away. But I mean, you're not going to walk away from a head coaching job if you think you have a job next year.
But I mean, does he really though? If they're already looking to replace you, that's different though for me.
At the end of the day, we don't know what those conversations between John and Barry Trotz were. We don't. We know what the facts of that we know are the end of year press conference when Paul Scorbina asked Barry Trotz and he said, you know, we're evaluating. Or sorry, let's go back even further. When Barry Trotz got hired, he went on Jared Stillman's show on our station, and he said, you know, we're evaluating, went on and on and on. He thinks John did a really good job with this team towards the end of the season. Then end of year press conference, it's David Poile, Barry Trotz, John Hines, we're still evaluating. When Paul Scorbina from the Tennessean asked him, hey, I'm assuming John's going to be here next year, blah, 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 blah. Then Barry Trotz comes on with Robbie and I for the morning show just about 3 weeks ago. Same answer, still evaluating. So those are the only facts of the situation that we know. We know those are the comments that he made outward to the media. That's what we know. We also know that John Hines was still the head coach of this team. What we don't know are the conversations behind the scenes. And I think that, that's how they handled it. Barry Trotz was a coach. He's been in this situation before. So I think it's important for us to, separate. This is the facts of what happened, and we don't know what happened with those conversations behind the scenes.
I mean, again, that's fair, but from what I have heard from Barry Trotz, he said that he's had an open line of communication. And if you have an open line of communication and John Hines knows that you're going to other candidates engaging their interest on the job, that has to set in with John Hines that he had somewhat of an idea that, if they find the right guy, they will be moving on from me. And for me, looking at that situation, I'm looking at John Hines saying, like, if you're already looking at other people and talking to other people, let me go ahead so I can get a jump start, because other coaching candidates are interviewing elsewhere, and I want to be in the mix on that earlier rather than later. That's just me personally, because, like I said, if your team is already starting to talk to other people to replace you, the prideful side of me says, okay, then go ahead and run it down.
He's under contract.
I know, I understand that, Michelle, but it's a brand new GM, and a brand new GM typically wants to come in and bring
but John can't just say, "Hey, I'm out of here." Like, he is under contract.
He can ask for his release. He can say, like, "Listen, I would like to mutually depart." And likely, if he goes to Barry Trotz with that, I think Barry would honor that. As a former coach,
we also don't know.
Again, you're right. We don't know. This is why I'm saying I'm speculating it. Like, I'm telling you the situation, and if Barry Trotz is having an open line of communication with John Hines, my thing with John Hines is, if you're already talking to other people to replace me, it's a brand new GM, I'm likely out of here anyway, because my resume doesn't say that, I've had a ton of success here. I would rather go somewhere else where they do believe in me and get a fresh start. That's just my opinion on it. I don't think that that's too crazy to think.
I just think it's speculating a lot on what we don't know. We have no idea what happened behind the scenes. Like, we have no idea the conversations that they had. We have no idea if Barry said to John, "Hey, you're a finalist. I want to talk to a couple other people. There is this amount of chance that you could be the coach here next year." Like, we just do not know. So I just think it's unfair probably on both parties to speculate and then kind of make opinions of, well, why would you do that? Why would you stay here, when we really don't know what was said behind the scenes? Like, he could have thought, "Hey, I'm not fired yet, so I have a good shot of being the coach here next year." Like, we just do not know that, because usually when you go ahead and start interviewing people for a head coaching job, there isn't a current head coach in place.
I guess I'm just of the sentiment, just especially watching the NFL for as long as I have. Coaches that are going to get fired immediately. So this is new being, covering the NHL for the last couple of years. And we know the Preds, this is only their fourth head coaching hire. They don't have a lot of turnover. So it's been a while, and neither of us were in this market when they moved off of Peter Laviolette. So I see it, and that was also in season too. So, really the last time that they moved off of a coach in the offseason was when they moved off of Barry Trotz. And that was, both of us were still in high school when that happened. So, and neither of us were living in Nashville either. So for me, it's just a bit odd. It's not something that I'm necessarily used to seeing. And it's just, for me, like, I've seen, coaches and get prideful about it. And if they believe that they got the stuff and that they can be a leader of men and leader of an organization, the logic for me says that I would rather, get ahead and not get left in the dust when all these other coaching candidates that are on the open market are starting to interview for the open positions. And if this team holds on to me for too much longer, I'm going to miss out on those opportunities when I know I'm on thin ice here, and that they're likely going to replace me with a brand new ownership and a brand new GM coming into this franchise.
Completely understand what you're saying, but at the same point, and I know we have to go to break here really quick, John was under contract. He can ask to be released, and if they say no, John is still under contract and he can't do anything about that. So completely get that, both sides of the story. A couple other headlines want to get to really quick. Get to college baseball. Tennessee beat Charlotte in the first round of the Super Regional 8-1. Vanderbilt also beats Eastern Illinois in the Nashville Regional 12-2. And then Brett Kern, longtime punter of the Tennessee Titans, was with the Eagles last season. He announces his retirement yesterday. Big part of the organization. Will be interesting to see if they want to put him into the Ring of Honor. And then Bob Hyde, longtime executive who was with the Oilers and the Titans over multiple decades, has passed away. So sending our thoughts and prayers to his family and everybody who knew him out there. But coming up next, Junnie and I are going to continue this situation with the Nashville Predators. We obviously gave you a preview in the first segment. Going to continue this discussion with the Nashville Predators, how the hiring was made, and what do we think Andrew Brunette will be like as the head coach of this team. Coming up next, I'm Michelle and Junnie, 102.5, 106.3 in the Game Nashville app.
185! Every team needs a quarterback. 185! That's why we have
Hasselbeck, bootleg, rollout, toss, touchdown.
Tim.
You can run good plays at the right time.
ESPN NFL analyst Tim Hasselbeck gives his expertise on all things NFL.
You evaluate players, and then you're turning them over to the coaching staff.
Every Tuesday at noon.
At the right time.
With Caroline, Willie, and D-Mace. Tim on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Interest rates may be high everywhere else, but now at Genesis Diamonds, you can get 0 interest on any purchase. 5 years, 0 interest financing with nothing down. Beautiful eternity bands, 1-carat diamond stud earrings, and more. Starting at only $50 a month. At Genesis, we are always looking for ways to do more for our amazing customers. So don't miss this. 5 years, 0 interest financing. Imagine that $6,000 designer ring is just $100 a month. We'll even finance the sales tax. Now through July 1st only. And only at Genesis Diamonds. Green Hills and Cool Springs. On approved credit, see store for details.
Time to save cash fast with the 102.5 The Game Deal of the Week. Get a $30 gift card to Central Barbecue for half off at thegamenashville.com/deals. A $30 gift card for just $15 at thegamenashville.com/deals. Smoke is our sauce at Central Barbecue. Visit their newest location in Hillsboro Village. Get them while they last at thegamenashville.com/deals.
Music City will be rocking June 23rd through the 25th with a different sound, the sound of NASCAR.
Start your engine!
The Ally 400 is back at Nashville Superspeedway, and this year, it's a night race. NASCAR in Nashville. It's guitars and fast cars under the lights. Visit NashvilleSuperspeedway.com to get your tickets for the triple header weekend, including the Ally 400, Tennessee Lottery 250, and the Rackley Roofing 200 today.
If you missed the latest from Stillman and Company.
So I'm willing to put it on the mahogany. I'm ready to push it in. I'm ready to say, I think this guy is going to be a good coach. I think he's going to be a great coach. I think the Predators made a great decision. I think the Predators are headed in the right direction. I like the GM. I like the coach. I understand what they're trying to do. I like the process they're going about doing it. I know that they may not win the Cup next year, and I'm not expecting them to. Now, I am expecting them to make the playoffs. Like, I know Barry has said, be patient. It might take a year. That's fine. I don't expect to have a contending team next year, but I expect to make the playoffs. And I expect that because I think the last coach was so bad, and I think the new coach is so good. And I think he's going to coach them up. I think he's going to elevate them.
Stillman and Company, weekdays from 2 to 6 on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
CMA Fest is happening in downtown Nashville, June 8th through 11th, with dozens of performances by many of today's hottest black country artists, including K. Michelle, Chapel Hart, the TSU Aristocratic Bands, Breland, and many more. Proceeds benefit the CMA Foundation and music education programs. Visit CMAfest.com for details.
Want to see our smiling faces? You can watch us on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook Live.
We are good to go.
Presented by Superbook Sports, voted #1 sportsbook in Vegas. This is Michelle and Junnie.
Really? That's fantastic.
Presented by Superbook Sports on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and on the Game Nashville app.
Sometimes coaches get fired, and they bring in a coach, and it's not the best coach, but it's the best guy who was there at that time. And if you didn't love the best guy who was there at that time, then John Hines would still be the coach of the Predators. But you did love this guy who is sitting down and joining us now, Andrew Burnett. So you did love that guy, and that's why you made the move. Is that wrong or a mischaracterization at all?
No, you hit it right on the nail. You really did. That's what I was looking at. When I knew I had the right guy, I was all in, and that's exactly what happened.
That was Barry Trotz and Andrew Burnett with Jared Stillman earlier this week after the Nashville Predators announced that Andrew Burnett would be the 4th head coach in Nashville Predators history starting now. Welcome back in, Michelle and Junnie, 102.5-106.3 The Game. This week's Nashville's best deal is Central Barbecue in Hillsborough Village. Central Barbecue is a slow-cooked Memphis-style barbecue restaurant where their motto is smoke is our sauce. Go to the Game Nashville/deals for half off a $30 gift card to Central Barbecue today. Continuing the discussion on Andrew Burnett, John Hines, just to give people some background on Andrew Burnett, if you haven't listened to the station or really heard much about him earlier this week, but Andrew Burnett actually was a part of the first ever Nashville Predators team and actually scored the first goal ever for the Nashville Predators in their second ever game, which I think is just I think it's so cool, Junnie, to see how full circle this organization has come, right? The organization started in 97 or 98 that season. And, they're about to turn 25 years old this year. Their first ever coach, Barry Trotz, is now taking over as general manager. One of their first ever players on their first ever team is now taking over as head coach. He scored the first ever goal. I mean, talk about storybook, the way all of this has just kind of come to the surface.
Well, the Preds, although they are a younger team, they were a expansion franchise in the late 90s. I feel like that they've done a good job of adopting good tendencies of a good organization, not making rash decisions, like firing coaches every other year. They've obviously had the same GM up until, this year with David Poyle, and now they've moved on to Barry Trotz, who was their first coach. So, the Preds have the identity of a family-based organization and not, like I said, making, calculated moves and bringing people that want and identify themselves with the Nashville Predator way. And that's how you build a winning culture. And although, the Predators haven't, won a Stanley Cup yet in their short stint as a team, they've still done a lot of winning. They've still appeared in the playoffs a bunch. So, the fact that they go with a guy that was a former player, he's a young and up-and-coming coach that had a lot of opportunities this offseason, I believe it was a great hire. I believe it was a great move. I think it can kind of rejuice this team. And they're at a point right now where they have a lot of draft capital. They have some good prospects that are playing down in Milwaukee, and they have good veteran leadership and good goaltending. So I feel like as much as people are looking at this as a rebuild, this could really be more of a retool and a quicker turnaround than what most people are thinking.
Yeah, so I think actually, Junnie, too, I think that, we've talked about the difference between Rand Carthon taking over the Titans as general manager versus Barry Trotz taking over the Predators as general manager. And these two teams are in completely different situations. With the firing of John Robinson, Rand Carthon comes into a lot of aging contracts, some older players who are getting paid a lot just from contract restructures or anything down the line, or just signings that are maybe hurting you like on the cap front, versus Barry Trotz taking over. David Poyle, they had created this plan, which I like to call it like handing the baton over, and Barry's coming in and they sell at the trade deadline, and he's got a lot of cap space. He's got a lot of draft capital. So, if you're a new GM taking over a team, like that is all you can ask for. Like you can really do so many different things. And we've talked about that. Do they want to package some picks together to move up in the draft? Do they want to package some picks together to go and try and get a guy and the cap space, right? Moving off some of those bigger contracts like a Matthias Ekholm, like a Mikhail Granlund at the trade deadline really, really helped the Preds to be in their situation. Just a little background on Andrew Burnett and his head coaching just experience he's had in the NHL. So in 2022, after the Joe Quenneville situation that happened. So Joe Quenneville used to be with the Chicago Blackhawks, and he was involved in the whole Kyle Beach sexual assault scandal. He left the Panthers in 2022, and then Andrew Brunette took over mid-season. So they had already played about 7 games. Andrew Brunette takes over, and then he's the head coach for the remainder of the season. He coached for 75 games. I think they won over 50 games. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me right now.
He was 58 and 18.
A game or a team that ended up winning the President's Trophy. And as you can tell, now the same team that is in the Stanley Cup Finals. So clearly a talented roster, but winning the President's Trophy is the highest honor you could win for the regular season, makes it past one playoff series, and then they end up getting swept by the Tampa Bay Lightning, who went on, as we know, they were in the middle of their reign, went on to go face the Avalanche for the Stanley Cup Finals. Then Andrew Brunette last year, this past season, he was an associate coach with the New Jersey Devils, specifically worked with special teams, specifically worked with that power play. And Barry Trotz has gone as far to say is one of the best offensive minds in the game right now. So, you look at what the Predators struggled with these last couple of years, and it really was that power play falling, other than the year where Duchesne, Forsberg, Yossi, other than the year, I think that it was 2021 where they had career seasons, this power play was ranking in the 22nd, 23rd, really the bottom half of the league's power play. The year where the guys had the career years, they were up to 6. So they were higher in the power play ranking, but it really is something that, it's free goals you talk about, right? Like getting a good kicker on an NFL team, it's free points. Right. And the power play and having a successful power play, like it can help and, advance your team so much. So Andrew Brunette coming here as the new coach with all of that experience. And, I think the fact that he was in a situation with the Panthers, no, he didn't end up getting the head coaching job this year. They didn't decide to bring him back on. He was just the interim head coach. Being a part of that New Jersey Devils team with their power play, I think was really beneficial for him.
Yeah, no, most definitely. So a lot of things to touch on there. So the Panthers the year prior, they were a solid team. And again, that was in the 2020 year before he took over in Florida. And, they were a first-round exit. I think something that is really key to point out was, they didn't finish first in their division the year prior. Like this roster, although it was good down in Florida, it wasn't like it was over the top. It wasn't like they were expected to win the President's Trophy. And he did do that in his first year. And they set up some really good offensive numbers. I think Robbie mentioned it on your all show that in the salary cap era, they averaged the most goals per game in that season. So, he is a young offensive mind. The NHL, the past couple of years has been more of an offensive-centric team. So I see a guy like that, and especially with what he did in New Jersey as an assistant coach, like you touched on, New Jersey was not really a good team. They have struggled for the last 10 to 15 years, really, and haven't been in much playoff contention. And he comes in and immediately helps, spark. They got a lot of young talent there because they've been picking so high in the draft. And you could see the immediate turnaround offensively and in the power play in specific, like you touched on, that really helped edge that team. And like I said, they had one of their best seasons that they've had in the last decade up in New Jersey. So, kind of like in the NFL that we see young offensive-minded coaches that are getting hired, some of which that you may not have ever heard of. This guy, although his resume as a head coach is small, was a finalist for the Jack Adams Award for Coach of the Year. I just think that he can do a lot with this team, and if he can help elevate this team offensively even just a little bit coming in, especially with some of the young talent, having a guy like UC Saros is always going to keep you in contention. So it will be really exciting and maybe energizing for this team to get a little boost offensively while having such elite goaltending on the back end defensively.
Okay, Junnie and I are going to get into more of the head coaching hire, the John Hines transition to the Andrew Brunette coming up next. Jared had some colorful comments on something that I said on the morning show, which just completely was spun and not at all what happened. But we will discuss that all next, coming up on Michelle and Junnie, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
All the big plays. All the big stories.
If you're not ready to play in this league, you will lose. I don't care who you're playing.
All in one place. We are Nashville's best sports talk. 102.5 and 106.3.
Because I love the sport.
Let's go!
We played the way we needed to.
Why would he make that move?
360 and he slams it home. The Game and the Game Nashville app.
What's up, everybody? Teron Davenport here for Superbook Sports. Bring that big bet energy this summer with Superbook Sports. Superbook Sports is the most trusted name in sports betting. And right now, use promo code THEGAME to score up to $250 with their first bet bonus. Win or lose, they'll match your first bet up to $250 with promo code THEGAME. Simply visit superbook.com for terms and conditions or download the Superbook Tennessee app in the app stores. Enter promo code THEGAME and you'll get $250 courtesy of Superbook Sports. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
This is Evan Bass for the Tennessee Men's Clinic. For most of us, sex is a big part of our relationship. So when something like erectile dysfunction starts affecting intimacy, it can be a real problem. But what you may not know is that ED doesn't just affect you, it can be tough on your partner as well. Plus, if you have ED, you know how it can make you feel. The truth is, we see a lot of guys who have depression, frustration, and even relationship issues because of ED. But we don't want ED to impact you or the one you love anymore. The Tennessee Men's Clinic tackles ED. Our urologists and medical providers take a comprehensive approach and have treated thousands of men with treatments that are successful in nearly 90% of cases. Even if your hormones are off, or if pills, wave therapy, or other treatments have left you hanging, the Tennessee Men's Clinic will work hard to help you get your sex life back, perhaps performing like you haven't in a long time. So call us. Your first appointment includes blood work and a medical consult. Call 615-208-9090 or go to TennesseeMen'sClinic.com. We have 2 offices in Midtown and Franklin.
Visit our website to learn more, including side effects. Treatments extra, results vary.
If you missed the latest from Stillman and Company.
Quite frankly, John Hines should have been fired after last season. After they got swept by the Avalanche in the playoffs, it was obvious the direction the organization needed to head. They should have fired him right then and there. Poyle should have stepped aside, and they should have started anew. They didn't do that. They gave him another chance. And he failed this year with higher expectations. And back then in 2020 when he took the job, the thought was, okay, the Predators have the players to do it because they did it in 17 and they did it in 18, and they just need the right voice. And I don't really think that that was true. But I would also contend that John Hines wasn't the right voice.
Stillman and Company, weekdays from 2 to 6 on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
This is massive news.
The Nashville Predators have moved on from head coach John Hines.
I try to do it in the best way. I'm a big supporter of John.
And hired former Pred Andrew Burnett as his replacement.
I'm so excited to be with these people, and I take a lot of pride in that.
What's next as incoming GM Barry Trotz puts his mark on the team?
We're going to get the right people, and if you want to be part of something special, you're going to be a Nashville Predator.
Keep it locked on your home for Smashville. 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app. This is Michelle and Junnie.
Well, thank you so much.
Presented by Superbook Sports on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and on the Game Nashville app.
So the one little mini sample we have wasn't just good, it was excellent. John Hines does not have excellent at all on the resume. And so while Chase says to me, why do you keep talking about Hines? And Ian says to me, what's the point of talking about Hines when he's gone? That is the point. That's the point. Those takes. The fact that Michelle thinks it's even between John Hines and Andrew Burnett, like what planet are we living on? What solar system are we living in? I mean, seriously, 8 years, no success, 0. John Hines has won as many playoff games in his career over 8 years, 4. And that includes that one play-in win in the bubble against Arizona, which I don't really count the playoffs, but the NHL technically counts it as the playoffs. He has as many playoff wins in his career over 8 seasons as Andrew Burnett has as an interim coach for 1 season.
Welcome back in, Michelle and Junnie. Michelle Knezovic, Junnie Riddle. You can watch us streaming live on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook Live every single day. Our video streaming is brought to you by Superbook. Download their app today and use promo code THEGAME, or you can use my promo code, Knez, Knez, first four of my last name. Okay, you just heard that audio from Jared Stillman there, who completely just spun what the actual question was and completely did like 3 segments on saying that we said that the move was lateral. Not true. Just not true whatsoever. So let's just get our facts straight. Let's just make sure that when we decide to do a segment on it, we are accurately representing what the actual question, what the actual, answer was, and not just using a sound clip but not actually prefacing what the question was. I want to shout out Ian Safar, who reminded him of that a couple times on the show. The question was not, how do you rate the move? I never said it was a lateral move. So let's just run that comment back. The question was, both coaches, the next 5 years, what could they do with the roster? Who knows if this is going to be, who knows what type of GM Barry Trotz is going to be? Who knows what type of players they're going to get? And really, like, I'll go into my answer and I'll explain what I meant, but really nobody knows. Nobody knows how Barry's going to be as a GM. He's been a very successful coach in the NHL, but we don't know how he's going to be as a GM. Nobody knows what John Hines' future is going to be like in the NHL after his stint with the Predators. Nobody knows what Andrew Burnett's going to be like for a head coach for a couple of years. Yeah, you can grab facts and you can boost your argument, you can defend your argument, sure. But at the end of the day, no one knows. So I will tell you guys what the actual question was. So let's just get that straight first off. And I want to thank Junnie Riddle for letting me know that this was happening, because I was not listening to the show, because I wasn't, and brought this to my attention. So Junnie Riddle, I appreciate you, man.
Well, yeah, I mean, of course, and I thought it would be a good topic, and I think it's a good conversation. But if I'm being honest, I kind of lean towards more Jared. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that.
Wait, I didn't even say what the question is. You tell me what you think the question is.
Well, I know you did say it. You said, what do you think? Who's going to put a team in a better situation for the next 5 years? Isn't that what it was about?
The question was, in the next 5 years, what would you rate each coach here in this organization with Barry Trotz, whatever type of teams you have?
With the Predators in general, or like when John Hines goes somewhere else and what he does in the next 5 years compared to what Andrew Burnett will do here with the Nashville Predators? Am I getting that right?
It's saying that, both of the coach under Barry for the next 5 years, what would this team look like?
So putting them in the same situation with the Nashville Predators under Barry Trotz, under the same basically under the same situation, right?
Let me defend my answer first before we get your answer. Okay.
Go ahead.
The reason I gave so Robbie and Joe were on the same page. They gave John Hines a 4. They gave Andrew Burnett a 5. I put them both at a 5, which made Jared go crazy and said I said this was a lateral move. No, I didn't. I gave John Hines a 5 because we've seen John Hines coach in the NHL for years now. His stint with the New Jersey Devils, his stint with the Nashville Predators.
Which has not been good.
He has been a 500 coach.
Okay.
Average. So average coach. Hasn't been awful. Like, everybody's acting like he didn't win. He has been a 500 coach. He's been a middle of the pack, made the playoffs, hasn't won a playoff series. He has been a 500 coach. Give him a 5 out of 10. Fair, right? 500 coach. Average. Blank in the middle. I don't know what his coaching, like the New Jersey Devils teams, I understand he coached an MVP 1 year, but the Devils teams weren't what the Devils team is now. So, like, let's not act like the Devils were like this awesome, like, stacked roster. The Predators teams he's coached, I believe that Peter Laviolette had better rosters than John Hines did. Am I saying that these teams couldn't have succeeded more? No, I think that these teams could have. You had a UC Saros, you had a Roman Josi. I think average, a 500 coach. Okay, give him a 5. The reason I gave Andrew Burnett a 5 is because we still have so much unknown. He took over a team that clearly is a successful team. I mean, they're literally in the Stanley Cup finals right now. I know there's been different moves, and they got Matthew Tkachuk this year in the offseason, but he took a team that was 7-0 when he took them over. Like I understand, like, that's a very small sample size, and an entire NHL season is a very long season. And I'm not taking anything away from him. I'm not taking anything away, because what he did, that was excellent. To get the President's Trophy, yes, that is excellent. What he did. Yes, he went to the New Jersey Devils and he helped them have a very successful power play as an assistant coach. Great. The sample size is still so small. And Jared's having the argument of like, well, he's won more postseason. And the President's Trophy team, they lost to Tampa in the first round. So, he's saying, well, he's won more playoff series. He won in New Jersey as an assistant coach, which I'm not taking anything away from him. But, like, you're a head coach for the reason. You get praised, and then you get knocked down when you don't do certain things. So the reason I gave him a 5, and maybe I should have just gave him a 6 for the sake of, because they do think his ceiling is higher, but it's because it's still so unknown. He's still a young guy. And what can he do with rosters that look like this Predators team's roster? Because if you put them side by side, the Panthers team last year and the New Jersey Devils team this year, yeah, I would say they're a lot better. And okay, yes, the President's Trophy, but the argument for John Hines has always been that he can't win in the playoffs, and he's had a winning record and made it into the playoffs. So the President's Trophy comment, I get it. It's a very high honor. It's great. But don't we only care about postseason winning? So that was my thing. Like, he took it as if I said this move was lateral. No, not saying that. Because I do believe, voices get stale. You need a new voice in the room, a younger guy, some new ideas, some fresh ideas. You need a change. But to say that, because Jared put him at like a 7 and a 2, to say that they would be so drastically different, like, he's acting as if John Hines, like there's a reason the guy's been a coach in the league for so long. Like, he's a 500 coach. No, I'm not saying he's the best coach ever, but I'm also not saying he's the worst coach ever. So I think, like, he just went like the way he said what I said is just not how it was portrayed.
I understand that, but you also have to look at the body of the work. I mean, we can sit here and say all day long about any topic that we have, like, okay, yeah, that's unknown. We don't know what's going to happen. Like, we could give that answer for just about any situation whatsoever. I think the point of the matter is, and again, I think Jared's discrepancy between the two is, maybe a little bit over dramatic, with how far apart that they are, especially, with Burnett's lack of coaching history. But I think the point of the matter is that Andrew Burnett, in 1 year taking over, and again, let's not overshadow the fact that, when Quenneville left Florida, and with all the allegations that are going on, that is the leader. That is the person that is trying to rally the troops. And when all of these things come out about his stint in Chicago and how he played a part in all that stuff, that can really change the trajectory of a team. And you brought it up. They didn't have a guy like Matthew Tkachuk. They didn't have that superstar player that can just come in and take it. Because, I mean, basically look at this playoffs. Like, how many game winners has Matthew Tkachuk had? How many times has he taken them out of the hole? I would argue with you that if they didn't have Matthew Tkachuk, they don't beat Boston. They don't even get out of the first round. If Pittsburgh doesn't choke away at the end of the year, they don't even make it to the playoffs. In Florida,
talking about this.
Michelle, I gave you the whole segment. Let me finish. I gave you the whole segment. Listen, him coming in and taking over that job flat out was a tough situation, and he took the bull by the horns, and they completely did as much as they possibly could. They lost to the Lightning, which the Lightning in the last 9 years, including this season, they have either been in the conference championship, they have either been in the Stanley Cup finals, or they have won the Stanley Cup in 6 out of the last 9 years. So for them to get swept in the second round, and for Burnett to lead Florida to their first playoff series win in 10 years is something significant. What?
The first round of the playoffs?
No, they made it to the second round, Michelle. They won their first round series.
They played Tampa in the first round.
They were the number 1 seed. Tampa was not the final seed. Go look it up. That is not true. They won a play. He gave that team their first playoff series win in 10 years. Their last one was 2012, and they won in 22. So, yes, he has had more success in 1 year than John Hines is. So when you take that, he was up for Coach of the Year. He took over a team that could have really, flipped the switch and went into turmoil. And he set records. He was up for Coach of the Year. Like, they had an amazing year. And I think when you look at this guy, to sit here and say that, the next 5 years in a given situation they would be equal, I just don't think that that's true at all. Again, Jared over-dramatized it, but he still made some valid points as to, putting them at a very similar mark, I just don't think makes sense.
So the Florida Panthers get the benefit of being, knocked out by Tampa, but yet the Predators don't get the benefit of being swept by the Avs.
I think it's a bit different, and we can carry over this conversation into the next segment because I know we got to go to break, but I mean, really part of the reason why they got swept by the Avs was because of decisions that John Hines made towards the tail end of that year.
Or because they didn't have their goalie who was a Vezina finalist. That's probably a big reason.
I mean, we can give excuses all day long, but the fact that UC Saros played the most games in the NHL that year was part of the reason why he had the wear tail at the end of the year.
Series.
Because he played the most games, Michelle. He played more games and started
series.
Again, he played more games that year than any other goaltender. And
Dude,
if you don't
I'm not
think that
talking
had
about the
any wear and
regular
tear,
season.
it had.
Okay, we got to go to break. We're going to continue this conversation. Coming up next, Michelle and Junnie, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
If it's important to Nashville,
I'll put it out right now.
It's important to Jared Stillman.
Like, that's it.
He's not afraid to ask the tough questions.
Something is going on, and the question is, what does it mean?
Or give the strong opinion.
And just needed the bozo offensive coordinator to stop ruining the quarterback.
Stillman and Company. Weekdays at 2 on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Music City will be rocking June 23rd through the 25th with a different sound, the sound of NASCAR.
Start your engine!
The Ally 400 is back at Nashville Superspeedway, and this year, it's a night race. NASCAR in Nashville. It's guitars and fast cars under the lights. Visit NashvilleSuperspeedway.com to get your tickets for the triple header weekend, including the Ally 400, Tennessee Lottery 250, and the Rackley Roofing 200 today.
The Electronic Express Memorial Day sale is ending soon. Don't miss a Hisense 65-inch 4K TV for just $349 or a GE Profile laundry pair for $599 each. Electronic Express has huge savings in every department: computers, appliances, 4K TVs, smart home, furniture and mattresses, and more. Get an Acer gaming laptop for just $599 or a Sony Bluetooth speaker for only $39. Get up to 3 years free financing throughout the entire store. Electronic Express. We make it happen.
Hey, it's John Tesh. You want to know how to get better rates, better coverage, and better service on your home and auto insurance? Work with Zander Insurance. I know it's a big promise, but this team delivers. They've been around for almost 100 years and have earned the privilege of representing dozens of insurance companies so they can shop, compare, and find you the best options available. More options mean more savings, and in many cases, better coverage. But it doesn't stop there. Each year, they review your coverage to make sure your rates stay competitive. Nobody else does that. And when it comes to service, just check out their ratings. Zander is one of the top agencies in the industry, and they earned that spot with their commitment to making sure their clients are taken care of like family. That's what sets them apart. Go to Zander.com for quick online quotes or call 800-356-1780 for that personal touch that you've been missing.
3 days of racing, 3 days of music, one huge weekend event. The Big Machine Music City Grand Prix is not just a race or a festival, it's an experience. Multiple music stations with Flo Rida, Vince Neil, Chris Jansen, Gavin DeGraw, and more. Fast cars going over 200 miles an hour. And a family fun zone with inflatables, Ferris wheels, kids games, and kid-friendly food trucks. Tickets and premium hospitality are on sale now. Go to MusicCityGP.com for tickets and get ready to experience Nashville's premier speed and sound event.
The NBA's best battle for the ultimate prize.
NBA champions.
Every big bucket.
Three-pointers right side is good.
Every big stop.
The steal rejected.
We are your home for the NBA Finals. Presented by Superbook Sports. Hear every game on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app. This is Michelle and Junie.
Really? That's fantastic.
Presented by Superbook Sports on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and on the Game Nashville app.
Welcome back in, Michelle and Junie, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Michelle Knezovic, Junie Riddle, Nick Frazier with us live from our Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Game Studios this morning. The second annual Music City Celebrity Golf Tournament is presented by Gary Force Acura, benefiting Souls for Souls this Wednesday. Like to support Souls for Souls? Check out the silent auction items or make a donation. Visit thegamenashville.com/golf for more information. Listen, we've got a couple of you guys weighing in on our phone and text line. Our phone and text line is driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. 1025 The Game phone and text line 615-737-1025. Like I said, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. I've got one question, and I want to go around the room with this question, and I think it will encapsulate this entire argument, but kind of take a step back, and instead of looking at specific coaches, specific games, because you can argue them left and right. You can make one argument to benefit you, not. I want to ask one simple question to both of you, Frazier and Junie, okay? You guys ready?
Yep.
Okay. What means more when winning, coaching or players?
I would say players.
Nick?
Please repeat the question. I'm sorry. I was answering a phone on the phone line.
No, you're good. What means more when winning, coaching or players?
Honestly, to me, it's going to be a weird answer, but it depends on the sport. If we're pertaining to hockey here,
coaching changes do a lot in hockey.
They do. In this situation regarding the Preds, I'd probably say players.
No. Just in general.
Just in general? Oh, okay.
Like not hockey, not anything. What means more in sports across the board, players or coaches?
I'm going to go with players just because I've seen players that have been, transcending, that have been different. They can change the pace of a game. I'm going to go with players for this answer.
So ding, 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 compare both of those rosters to me, and then we can revisit this topic another day because I agree, players.
Yeah, Michelle, I just want to chime in real quick between what you and Junie have said.
In, Nick.
Last segment you guys talked about what would work, Hines or Brunette. And you mentioned a great point about playoffs. If we're playing regular season, it's about getting to the playoffs. Personally, I think both coaches can get from what is going on with the Admirals recently. If you take that progress and take it into next season, along with whatever happens in this year's draft, I think personally both coaches get to the playoffs, in my opinion. Whereas which one will go farther, I would lean to Brunette just because of the pedigree of the offensive caliber that he's brought to the table. So, I mean, if that gives any more clarification to anybody's answer that's listening out there, then hopefully I give my 2 cents and it makes sense to you.
Yeah, no, sure, Nick. Thanks for chiming in on that. And I think that is sometimes where sports arguments get skewed because, we can do the regular season argument or, the postseason argument because, at the end of the day, nothing is X's and O's and we really have no idea how either of them are going to pan out. Like, I think a true test, and Jared did bring up this point, is, John Hines looks like he will be up for the Rangers job. That is a great roster. That is a great roster top to bottom. And I think that's very, very clear to everybody right now. It's also a really hard market. I mean, we saw their coach, get fired this year after the season they had and getting bounced in the playoffs. And we see it a lot in the NHL. I'd say more than any other sport is when you lose, like hockey, they're really opt to move on from their coaches very, very quickly. And you don't get many opportunities. But I think that will be the true test. I don't think John Hines was an awful coach. Do I think that Andrew Brunette is a young star that could be a great coach someday? Yeah, I do. But we still just don't know because the sample size is so small. We've seen a pretty big sample size of John Hines being a decent coach in the NHL. Like I said, about 500. Can't win a playoff series, sure. But to then say that you can project what a coach will be in the next 5 years and really the first 5 years of being a true head coach, I just don't also think is fair. And I think to the point that I made at the beginning of this segment to you all was at the end of the day, when you're winning sports games, what is the true factor? The factor is having really elite players. And I'm not saying coaching isn't important, because I do think you have the coaches out there like the Mike Tomlins, like the Andy Reids, like and obviously that's NFL, for example. But I do think the coaches, yes, can elevate you. But the true test in winning a championship, winning a cup, winning Lombardi Trophy, like winning these things, you have to have, generational players who can get out there and execute. And when I look at the rosters that each coaches and the teams that each coach has been a part of, I think there is a difference. I truly do. And that's why I'm giving the benefit of the doubt. And I think this argument kind of got into, more specifics in the games and the wins and the losses and everything like that. But I think that probably encapsulates what I was trying to convey when saying all of this.
I just think it undermines how valuable a good coach is to a franchise in any given sport. And again, players do win games, but coaches also, strategize and put players into the best situation to be able to succeed. And for me, when I look at John Hines, it was the inconsistencies in seasons were really what led to, his downfall. In 2020 and 2021, that season, they had an awful start. They were dead in the water, and because of a late month-and-a-half push, they ended up making the playoffs and actually had a really solid season with a really talented Carolina team. But, in 2022, 2021, 2022, they had a hot start. I mean, the Preds were one of the hottest teams in the league, and at one point they were even first place in the West. And then all of a sudden the season starts to taper off, and UC Saros, like I said, really got overplayed, and they had David Riddick and they had Connor Ingram as backups, and those guys weren't getting it done, and ended up Saros just got worn down because he played 67 out of 82 games, and that's just way too much. And we saw that number go down a little bit this year, and he wasn't the most played goaltender, and he wound up staying a little bit healthier with Lankinen being in there and being serviceable when he got the opportunity to play. So I just see it as, John Hines, he's been a head coach for 8 years. The success isn't there. And we've seen Andrew Brunette being a very young and up-and-coming offensive-minded coach. That's where the league is kind of moving towards. There have been reports that, the players in the locker room are starting to kind of tune John Hines out and getting kind of sick of the system that he was running, because it was more or less like be really, really aggressive on the forecheck and just, try and get a goal here and there and just really rely heavily on your goaltender. And I think that would have worked for you, 5 or 6 years ago. But in the modern day NHL, you need to set your players up in good offensive opportunities, taking advantage of the power play. And I just think the significant difference between the two is how Brunette is going to put this Predators team into those situations and get the most out of the players offensively, whereas John Hines didn't necessarily do that. And I just think that, kind of saying that, we don't know and that they're kind of, at the same level, I just don't agree with that. And that's just me personally.
And I also do want to preface something too from the last segment before we head to our second hour, and we're going to switch to the NFL, talk a little DeAndre Hopkins. But, when you look at that Avs series, I don't think it's fair to say, well, John Hines didn't make some right calls. I mean, they didn't have their Vezina finalist goalie. I mean,
I get that, but
I know the Avs went on. They actually swept other teams.
Well, of course they did. And again, that Avs team was excellent, but I mean, look at where that Predators team were. They were supposed to be the number one wild card. They were supposed to go play in Calgary. And because that they dwindled away those last, like I said, they lost 5 out of 7 games to end that year. Because of that, they ended up playing the Avalanche, and because Saros played so many games, he got hurt. Michelle, you keep interrupting me. Please let me finish what I'm saying. I do not interrupt you. Let me finish what I'm saying. So because he got knocked out and because they lost that first wild card spot, you're playing a much more difficult team. And it wasn't like they just got swept. In every single game, they just got absolutely their doors blown off them. It wasn't even close whatsoever. So I just think that a little context and how they kind of choked away the end of that season, even with Saros in the lineup, has to be taken into consideration as well.
Completely get that. But before, you said they lost the series because of decisions John Hines made. I understand they were put in that place because they lost games, but
playing Saros that many games had to do with it.
Hey, come on, let me finish. We'll switch topics to the NFL a little bit. Coming up on the second hour of Michelle and Junnie, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
He knows the ins and outs of the Titans and isn't afraid to give his opinion.
Traylon Burks needs a massive offseason.
He's Jonathan Hutton of Outkick.
I don't see how they make a move without going to Ryan Tannehill.
Catch him every Monday at 10:30 on Chase and Michelle, and every Wednesday at noon on Caroline, Willie, and D-Mace. Hutton is on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app. If you missed the latest from Stillman and Company.
I believe that the way this went down, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you were only going to make the move to go from one coach to another if you loved the guy that you were going to go to. And if you didn't love the guy, sometimes coaches get fired and they bring in a coach, and it's not the best coach, but it's the best guy who was there at that time. And if you didn't love the best guy who was there at that time, then John Hines would still be the coach of the Predators. But you did love this guy who is sitting down and joining us now, Andrew Burnett. So you did love that guy, and that's why you made the move. Is that wrong or a mischaracterization at all?
No, you hit it right on the nail. You really did. That's what I was looking at. When I knew I had the right guy, I was all in, and that's exactly what happened.
Stillman and Company, weekdays from 2 to 6 on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
CMA Fest is happening in downtown Nashville, June 8th through 11th, with dozens of performances by many of today's hottest black country artists, including K. Michelle, Chapel Hart, the TSU Aristocratic Bands, Breland, and many more. Proceeds benefit the CMA Foundation and music education programs. Visit CMAfest.com for details.
When you want live and local.
If they were just better at the offensive line.
You can be a contender in the AFC again.
They've had more winning seasons than not. 102.5 and 106.3 The Game has you covered. Looking for some national programming?
Why do I want to get a running back like that 5 more years? The AFC now is so deep at quarterback.
Check out 94.9 The Fan. Nashville's home for all things sports is 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and 94.9 The Fan.
ElectronicExpress.com. We make it happen.
Your company's hiring. Who isn't? We would love to show you how to use 102.5 The Game to attract and retain employees. We can also help you find the exact person you're looking for with a targeted digital campaign. You can trust our team to help you build your team. Email us at together@cromwellmedia.com.
Live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Studios. WPRT-FM Pegram, WPUC HD2 Laverne. Nashville's exclusive home for the Nashville Predators. 102.5 and 106.3.
A gunny performance. Do your job.
And the Tigers regain the lead.
The Game.
A Cromwell Media Station.
Discussing the big sports stories of the weekend. This is Michelle and Junnie. With Michelle Knezovic and Junnie Riddle. Presented by Superbook Sports on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Tune in for Nashville Sounds Baseball tonight at 6:04 p.m. on 94.9 The Fan. The Sounds take on the Charlotte Knights, the AAA affiliate of the Chicago White Sox. The Sounds will wrap up their series tomorrow against Charlotte at 12:05. Nashville Sounds Baseball on 94.9 The Fan, presented by 312 Pizza Company, Farm Bureau Health Plans, and Family Leisure. Switching topics to the NFL a little bit, we will have Easton Freeze join us at 10:15 in about 15 minutes. He works for Broadway, Tennessee. He does content for Broadway Sports Media, covers the Tennessee Titans, and has been out there at OTAs with us as well. But switching to the NFL a little bit, one of the biggest questions is where DeAndre Hopkins will land. What do the fans think? Would you like to get a guy like DeAndre Hopkins in here into this offense? Do you think it'd be worth it? Now that the Arizona Cardinals released him, you don't have to give up any draft capital. It merely would just be signing a guy like DeAndre Hopkins. There has been some rumblings of could he go back to the Houston Texans, the Bills, the Chiefs, but I think what it really comes down to is the main question of how much does he want to get paid? And is he caring more about money, or is he caring more about going to a team that could compete for a potential Super Bowl? Michelle Knezovic, Junnie Riddle, Nick Frazier, live from our Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Game Studios. If you want to watch us streaming, you can watch us streaming live on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook Live every day. Our video streaming is brought to you by Superbook. Download their app today and use the promo code The Game. So Diana Rossini went on ESPN and discussed where the DeAndre Hopkins trade is at, some teams that are interested. Here was Diana Rossini on DeAndre Hopkins.
DeAndre Hopkins wants to get paid the type of money that we saw Odell Beckham Jr. get paid. Not that same exact amount, but money's definitely part of this. And financially, when you're looking at all the teams around the league that are interested in DeAndre Hopkins, it's got to work financially for them. So you look at teams like the Chiefs, the Bills. You heard me talk about them being a good fit for them. Do they have the money? And would Hopkins be willing to maybe take less to play with a quarterback like Josh Allen or, let's say, Patrick Mahomes? And it's really going to come down to what he prefers and what he wants, as there are several teams, including the New England Patriots, who are interested in DeAndre Hopkins. And we're going to see over the next few weeks Hopkins taking visits with different teams, Brian, and he's going to make a decision on what's best for him.
So that was Diana Rossini on ESPN discussing the DeAndre Hopkins situation. And Junnie, I think it just really comes down to how much does he want to get paid? Because I feel like at the beginning of him being released from the Cardinals over the last couple of days, it's, well, would he come here because they're probably not a Super Bowl contender team? Does he want to go to the Bills? Does he want to go to the Chiefs? But it looks like now, just from reports that have been surfacing, it's going to come down more to money.
Yeah, no, I think it will come down to money as well. And I guess one of the tables that turned here was when Odell Beckham got signed by the Ravens for $15 million, which I think was highly overpaid. But, that's the market that we live in the NFL. Top-notch receivers, even number 2 receivers, are getting paid like number 1s from a few years ago. But, from what I've been seeing, the fact that the Houston Chronicle has come out and said that that he could potentially be interested in going there. I mean, Houston, I think by most people, is going to be one of the worst teams in the league this year. And so if he's willing to go back to a team that traded him for pennies on the dollar and play with a rookie quarterback, I don't understand why the Titans wouldn't be interested in this. And the reason why I bring this up is because a lot of people have come out and said, if the Titans are kind of in a rebuild or in a transition, why would you bring this guy in? And my response to that is they haven't really come out and said that they are in a rebuild. They still have Ryan Tannehill. They still have Derrick Henry. And that kind of tells me that they're still somewhat trying to go for it, especially with their expectations for this defense. And so when you get a guy like a DeAndre Hopkins, especially on a one-year deal, which that's what he's going to sign is a one-year deal so that he can try and go into next season and get, a more of a long-term deal and get another payday. But I see this as a win-win for the Titans. You go out and try and get a guy like a DeAndre Hopkins, and you still have some of your older veterans that you haven't moved off from yet. And so if you're going to still try and go for it, why not go all in? This isn't the same as the Julio Jones situation that a lot of people continue to bring up. This guy's a little bit younger. He hasn't had as many health issues, and he didn't play as much last year due to a suspension, not because he's been dealing with ailing hamstrings like Julio Jones was. So with where the Titans are and the direction that they've kind of allured and showed us that they're going towards, I don't see why they wouldn't go for it, especially if he's down to sign somewhere that's willing to pay him more money.
Yeah, and I think, when you look at the OBJ situation, that clearly set the market. And DeAndre Hopkins is probably looking at it, well, he's coming off an ACL injury. He didn't even play for a year. I understand DeAndre Hopkins wasn't available for about half the year last year, and some of it did have to do with PEDs. Does that concern you, Junnie, that aspect of things? Not the age, not the money, but, the suspension for the PEDs last year?
No, it doesn't, because when he was in the game last year, I didn't see much of a drop-off in his game. He was still playing at an elite level. I don't know the exact number of games, but it was like eight or 9 games he played in last year. So he played about half the season, and he was on verge to get, 1,200 yards. He had, over 60-plus catches, and those stats alone and only playing half the year is better than Robert Woods, Traylon Burks, or anybody that the Titans had on this roster last year. And especially if Traylon Burks is expected to be wide receiver 1 this year, and everybody wants to take him the leap that he's going to take, why not take some of the defensive pressure going into games off him by going and get a solidified veteran like a DeAndre Hopkins? I mean, it could be a 1-year deal. I mean, I just don't see any way that this would crash and burn in the Titans. You sign the guy for 1 year. If it doesn't work out, so what? Who cares? You're going to start moving off some of these older veterans next year anyway. Mm-hmm. You might as well do everything that you possibly can to go for it, because going into this season, there's so many question marks, and you want to give the fans a reason to get excited and hopeful for this year. And with the way the national media is portraying this team, and with all the holes on the roster that we do see, you might as well make a big splash move like this just to get the interest level flowing for the fans going into this year with so many unknowns.
No, I agree, Junnie. I mean, if I'm on the Titans, and if I'm a Ryan Tannehill, if I'm a Derrick Henry, I'm saying, if we can do everything we can to go and get this guy to amplify our offense. And I actually look at this offense completely different if DeAndre Hopkins is on this team. And I look at this team competing for the division again. I look at this team as, or a potential wild card team. I mean, I know the AFC is pretty stacked, but I mean, we've seen Ryan Tannehill be successful. Derrick Henry still was second in the NFL rushing last year. We think that they've made upgrades at the offensive line, and it really can't be any worse than last year. Traylon Burks has just looked way more confident out there and knows what he's doing, and is coming into camp clearly with his head on his shoulders and ready to take on the year. I mean, I think adding a guy like DeAndre Hopkins, just everything he's done. Jim Wyatt actually put out an article in 2018 and he talked to DeAndre Hopkins, and DeAndre Hopkins, he went on just to say how him and Vrabel had an off the field relationship when he was in Houston, and how, the Tennessee Titans are lucky to have him as a head coach. So clearly they have a good relationship. Tim Kelly was his offensive coordinator, but I just look to, if you're Ryan Tannehill and you're Derrick Henry, it's like, if they got a guy like that, at their points in their career, I mean, Ryan Tannehill's probably looking at this wide receiver group of like, okay, I got to do what I got to do. But, if they got a guy like that, it's like, okay, finally, right? Like a guy that you can just feel like similar to AJ Brown. When Tannehill knew he had AJ Brown, like you saw him being more, of course he's going to go throw it deeper or whatever it may be, because he knows that AJ Brown will make the play. Similar to a guy like DeAndre Hopkins. He's a proven wide receiver in the league. He can make plays. He's got a great catch radius. I mean, I look at it from their point of view, and you're kind of older, you got a new GM, and it's like, oh, thank you, throwing me a bone after drafting 2 quarterbacks in the last 2 drafts, and Ryan Tannehill's offensive line needing a bunch of work. It's like this offseason, you can kind of sit there and be like, thank you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think that would kind of boost the morale on the offensive end. And the 2 points I want to make here really quickly is, number one, Traylon Burks being really the only bona fide receiver that defensive coordinators are going to fear. They're going to do a lot of bracketing, a lot of double teams. They're going to try and take Traylon Burks out of the game, I feel. And for me, I just think that, going out and getting a veteran like a DeAndre Hopkins is just really going to help the progression of a Traylon Burks. DeAndre Hopkins was thought of as one of the best, wide receivers in the game a few years ago. And, because of really one injury, because he's been healthy for basically all of his career, in 2021. And then last year with the PEDs, he's kind of fallen off that mark. But having a big name guy like that and taking the pressure off Traylon Burks is going to be huge. So I think it's a no-brainer move that you go out and you pay this guy and you just give him a 1-year deal to prove it. And how much longer are the Titans going to hold on to Derrick Henry? How much longer are they going to hold on to Ryan Tannehill? If you have these guys on the roster, it just doesn't make any sense why you wouldn't want to go out and make a move like this.
And you have room to do so. I think that's important to portray to the fans too. You could do a similar situation like the Ravens did with OBJ, where maybe only on your, like against your cap, you're paying him $2 million a year, but you throw in a lot of incentives in there, and then you give him a big chunk of money up front for your signing bonus. So then that's a way that you could manipulate it, especially if you only want that 1 year deal. You only want to be locked into it for 1 year to see what this team is and then see where you go this time next year. Coming up next, Junnie and I will be joined by Easton Freeze. He works for Broadway Sports Media, covers the Tennessee Titans. I'm going to get his takeaways from OTAs and all the storylines surrounding the Tennessee Titans this year. Coming up next on Michelle and Junnie, 102.5, 106.3 in the Game Nashville app.
Andy, 24-21, your final.
The Game.
All by himself for a one-hand flush.
Gets bigger.
The doors on the board.
Your new home for Vanderbilt Athletics is 102.5 The Game and 94.9 The Fan. Football, men's basketball, baseball, and women's basketball all live here. Your home for Vanderbilt Athletics is 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and 94.9 The Fan.
Heard that phrase, less is more? Well, at Harbor Freight, it's more for less. That's why everything in our store is priced affordably. Whatever you do it for less at Harbor Freight. And now, when you buy a Bauer 20-volt battery and charger for $99.98, you'll get to choose a select Bauer 20-volt tool to go with it for free. Yep, more for less. Harbor Freight. Offer and pricing valid in-store and on in-stock items only from now until June 30th. While supplies last, selection varies by location. Cannot be combined with other discounts or promotions. Free tool limited to select items only.
If you missed the latest from Stillman and Company.
I do think Kyle Phillips is going to, and I said it before, I believe he leads the team in receptions. I do believe that. So I guess if you want to say diamond in the rough, he would be the one, but I mean, we kind of know what it is he brings to the table. Mm-hmm. And just because he's leading the league in receptions, the team in receptions, let me make sure we're straight, that doesn't mean that, you know, he's going to have 100 receptions and 1,500 yards. I believe Burks leads the team in yards, and Okonkwo and Burks go head-to-head for touchdowns.
I think there's a chance that Treylon Burks pops this year. Not that he would be the diamond in the rough, because we're expecting him to be the number one receiver. But I think there's a chance that Treylon Burks is a number one receiver at the end of this year.
Absolutely. It's a good chance.
And I think that's probably what they're banking on.
Stillman and Company, weekdays from 2 to 6 on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
High interest rates may be the norm everywhere else, but right now at Genesis Diamonds, we're always thinking about our customers, and we've decided to slash interest rates down to 0% for 5 years. That means you can get those diamond earrings, that designer engagement ring, or that luxury pre-owned Rolex and spread your payments over 5 whole years without paying a dime in interest. Birthdays, anniversaries, just because gifts starting as low as $35 a month, and that's with 0 down. Now through July 1st only, and only at Genesis Diamonds, Green Hills and Cool Springs. Approved credit, see store for details.
For more than a century, AM radio has evolved to meet the needs of our community. In their car, at home, or on the job, more than 80 million listeners depend on AM radio each month. AM radio is also the backbone of the emergency alert system, which keeps us safe in dangerous times. It's reliable, free, and public safety depends on it. Text AM to 52886 and tell Congress we need AM radio in cars. This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters.
Anyone want to tell me what happened? Did you miss any of today's show?
It's okay. It's fine. Don't worry.
Subscribe to the Michelle and Junnie podcast on Apple, Spotify, and other podcast platforms, or by going to thegamenashville.com.
All right, I'll give it a shot.
This is Michelle and Junnie.
Well, thank you so much.
Presented by Superbook Sports on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and on the Game Nashville app.
Michelle and Junnie, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. We are live from our Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Studios this morning. Michelle Knezovic, Junnie Riddle, Nick Fraser with us from our Game Studios. And now we're going to go to our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in Easton Freeze. He works for Broadway Sports Media and covers the Tennessee Titans. Easton, thanks for joining us this morning.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Michelle. Junnie, how we doing, guys?
Doing good, Easton. Thanks for coming on with us.
Yeah, doing well. Easton, well, you have been out there with OTAs just like I have. What is just kind of your initial thoughts and maybe takeaways from the first couple times, just being able to actually see the guys back in the facility and even some of them on the practice field?
Well, we can start with the quarterbacks, right? That's the talk of the town, and it's those three guys that everybody wants to focus in on. It's been what I think most of us expected it would be. A lot of Malik Willis and Will Levis playing against each other at relatively the same skill level. And again, I mean, it's May, it's June, right? No pads, not the most game speedy that it's going to get. It'll get a lot faster when they get into the late July and early August. But it's very easy to tell, Michelle, and I'm sure that you've seen the same thing. Ryan Tannehill is miles ahead of the competition right now, and it's going to be him leading this team going into the year unless something dramatic changes or a massive trade comes down the pipeline. He is going to be the guy for this team. The team looks good. The vibes seem to be high. I don't know if you kind of picked up on the same thing, Michelle, but they seem to be pretty happy this time of year with where they're at, with the guys they have on this roster. A lot of the new additions bringing a lot of juice. Guys like Azeez Al-Shaair and Arden Key have a lot of energy out there at practice. New defensive backs coach Chris Harris is absolutely electric during practice. He's a ton of fun to watch run up and down the field and scream with his hair on fire. So I think the vibes are high out there, and I think it's a team that is going to be an interesting one to cover throughout the summer as we get closer to the season.
I agree, Easton. I think one of the guys that I took immediate notice to, not only because I was watching the wide receiver group, but Treylon Burks just really taking on that number one wide receiver role there. What have you just noticed watching Treylon Burks in OTAs and, looking at the difference in just his body language from year one to year two, Easton?
Well, it's only been 1 year, but he looks like a guy who's got a couple of years of experience under his belt in just the past couple of months. Michelle, I don't know if you've noticed this like I have, but the first thing I noticed when I saw him this year out there at OTAs is this guy looks more skinny. He looks more cut. He looks healthier. I think that work that he's done staying here in Nashville throughout the offseason, trying to acclimate his body to the air quality and the temperature, he seems to be like a guy that is leaner, meaner, in a much better place from a physical and really mental standpoint. We talked to his new wide receivers coach, rather, this past week, and he was ranting and raving about how this is a guy who, not just from a physical standpoint is in a better place, but from a mental standpoint. I mean, we think back to this time last year as a rookie, coming off of the circus that is the pre-draft process. He gets thrown in as the A.J. Brown replacement, which was a completely unfair situation to be put in, but it's the situation he's put in nonetheless. And he comes in and is dealing with asthma, dealing with being probably a little bit overweight, having to learn that in the NFL he's not going to be the freaky athlete he was in college and probably get away with just his raw athleticism and not necessarily have to outwork guys every single day at practice. In the NFL, it's a brand new deal, and he's realized that, and so he seems to be really stepping up to the plate, really grabbing the mantle that is being thrown his way of, you need to lead this team as a wide receiver one. He looks the part. He seems to be acting the part. Whether or not he can deliver on that promise that Titans fans and media see in him is yet to be seen, but I think he gives the team a really good chance to end up hitting on their number 16 overall selection last year.
Do you think the Titans should go out and be aggressive in the DeAndre Hopkins situation?
I do. I mean, I don't expect them to necessarily. I think that DeAndre Hopkins is a really hot commodity, and in a league that is dictated by the air game and by star receivers at this point. I expect him to have a number of suitors, and the Titans. I think that the hyperbolic talk on either side of the coin for whether the Titans are a great or a horrible DeAndre Hopkins landing spot are both equally wrong. I think the Titans are an all right landing spot for him. If he wants a really nice contract, a ton of targets, the ability to be the alpha in the room, then Tennessee is, and to play for coaches that he has history with and respects, then Tennessee is the place for him. But if he wants to compete for a Super Bowl right away, if he wants to play with an elite quarterback, then Tennessee's probably not the right place for him, right? So I do think the Titans should give it the old college try. I do think bringing him in would change the complexion of this room. But frankly, I think this Titans team internally perceives their receiving room, or should I say their receiving threats on this team, really, really differently than the majority of the people on the outside perceive it. I think that they see a lot more in their three primary targets this year, which we expect to be Treylon Burks, Kyle Phillips, and Chigakonkwo. What if I told you that as all three of these guys coming into year two, it's a ton of projection with them, right? Because we saw flashes from all three guys last year. We saw what they are at their best and how they're capable of impacting the game. But for guys not named Chigakonkwo, there was a lot of injury issues they dealt with on and off the field and just consistency issues. And so that's what is yet to be seen. But if this team, just to throw out examples, and I'm not saying these are perfect comps, I'm not saying that this is what these guys are going to be, but try to put yourself in the shoes of this front office, see this team through the lens that they're perceiving it in that building. If they see their top three receivers as analogous to, for example, DK Metcalf, Hunter Renfrow, and Dallas Goedert, if I magically put those three guys at the top of the pecking order for the Titans and went to the average fan and said, how do you feel about your receiving room? I think that the perception would be a lot more positive than a lot of fans hold in their hearts right now. Now, am I saying that's what these Titans have in those three guys? I'm not, but I think it's what they think they might have. And I think they see unlimited, untapped potential in those three, and that's why they've been a little bit more content with their receiver room throughout this offseason than the average fan.
We're talking to Easton Freeze from Broadway Sports Media and the host of Hot Reads podcast that you can go listen to on all different podcasting platforms. Now, Easton, a guy I want to get into, which I feel like not a lot of fans know about, and he's kind of flying under the radar, is an undrafted free agent out of Ferris State, Caleb Murphy. He's an edge rusher that set an NCAA record, and I believe he had, 25 and a half sacks last season. Do you see this guy as a potential player that can come in and make the roster, and if he does make the roster, make an immediate impact in that edge rushing room?
Yeah, Junnie, no doubt his resume in college is pretty ridiculous, right? You mentioned the number of sacks. I'm pretty sure he had all of them at Ferris State. I'm not sure how many they had as a team, but I think they all went to Caleb Murphy. He's a stud out there. It's really difficult from an evaluation standpoint watching a guy's tape because, I do a lot of draft evaluation pre-draft, but Caleb Murphy was certainly not a guy on my radar until after the Titans went and grabbed him once the draft had wrapped up. But you look at that resume, and it certainly is intriguing. On tape, he's just as dominant as the numbers dictate. He's somebody that, playing for a smaller school against lower competition at Ferris State, he's doing what you would expect of an NFL caliber athlete. He's tearing everybody apart. It's a tough comp, though, visually trying to translate that tape to what it might look like at the NFL level, which is really 2 or 3 steps up from that level of competition. But what I can tell you from what we've seen at practice, and I'm sure Michelle can attest to this, again, in May and June, the defense in particular with no pads on, just helmets, not really doing a whole lot of structured activity in terms of running full defenses, running full plays. It's a difficult thing to evaluate from our perspective until we get a little bit further on into the offseason. But his energy is really high. He seems to fit in. He certainly does not look like a guy in that position room who couldn't absolutely push for a spot on this team. And if he's got the juice that he brought at Ferris State, if he's got even a quarter of that juice for this roster, I think that he's going to very potentially be one of those guys that this team's been really good at finding in the past couple of years, guys on the defensive front at a value, bargain bin price in undrafted free agency that they added this roster, and rotationally is a really nice piece to have in terms of depth.
Now, last one real quick for you. I was on your podcast with you earlier this week, and we were talking about concerns that we have for the Titans roster going into this season. Now, one of those concerns is the kicking position, and you brought up a name that I hadn't heard or considered before. Do you want to tell our listening audience about a potential kicker that could come in and kind of change that position, which has been a position that the Titans have needed for the last couple years?
Junnie, I have become a full-blown believer in the undrafted free agent kicker out of Texas Tech, I believe, Trey Wolff. This is a guy that the Titans picked up after the draft this year. He has leg for days. We saw when McManus was released from Denver a couple of days ago, a lot of wailing and gnashing of teeth from Titans fans for the Titans to kick the tires on a veteran like that. When the Jaguars went and grabbed him and released their kicker, then wailing and gnashing of teeth for the Titans to go kick the tires on that. Because with Randy Bullock leaving town and the kicking competition coming down to a UDFA and Trey Wolff that folks just don't know about yet, and Caleb Shudak, a guy who's been on the team for a year and has not really impressed anybody, it's I think from the average fan perspective, a position of great need. I'm telling you, I think this guy's the truth. I think that he's the future for this team. I can tell you this much, the way that this team is handling him in practice, even as a rookie, he is being given each and every opportunity to win that position. And if you're a Titans fan wanting desperately for a kicker on your team that brings some distance to the equation, Randy Bullock, really accurate from short range, really reliable from short range, but the biggest concern from him was, and the reason why they hardly ever let him kick beyond 50 yards, he just didn't have the leg that a lot of these younger bomber-type kickers in the league have. Trey Wolff has all of that. The question with him is accuracy, and when a guy like him, and he's got a big frame. I mean, I don't have his numbers pulled up right here, but if you were to just look at the numbers, you may not be thinking this guy's playing kicker. He's kind of like a Ryan Stonehouse. He's big, he's built, he's strong. I really do think that he's going to, if he can dial the accuracy in a little bit, which we've seen him do at camp, and I can't get specific on the numbers or anything, but if he's able to perform in games the way he's performed the past couple of times we've seen him, this guy's absolutely an NFL caliber kicker. I think that he's who the Titans are earmarking as the future for them at the kicking position.
Easton Freeze, thanks so much for hopping on this morning. If you want to find him, you can follow all of his coverage on Twitter at Easton Freeze, works for Broadway Sports Media, and also is the host of the Hot Read podcast. Easton, thanks so much for hopping on with us this Saturday morning.
Appreciate it, Easton.
Anytime, guys. It was a pleasure.
Yep. That was Easton Freeze. Like I said, works for Broadway Sports Media. You can follow him on Twitter, Easton Freeze, and host of the Hot Read podcast. Coming up next, Junnie and I are going to recap, going to talk about some of our favorite storylines heading into this season with the Tennessee Titans. All next on Michelle and Junnie, 102.5, 106.3 in the Game Nashville app.
All the big plays.
Tannehill, Henry right up the middle, touchdown, Tennessee.
All the big stories.
The Titans' window to contend is however long Derrick Henry stays Derrick Henry.
All in one place. We are Nashville's best sports talk. 102.5 and 106.3.
Gets it back and scores.
Our execution was good.
They have not found their groove.
It's always great to win in this league. It's tough to win.
The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Get a great deal on one of the most versatile tractors in the industry, the Kubota BX, which is part of Kubota's tractor lineup rated #1 in durability and owner experience. Stop by Krebs Kubota today and bring home select BX series equipment for 0 down, 0% APR for up to 72 months, plus save up to $800. Now through June 30th, see Krebs Kubota or go to KubotaUSA.com for more details. Krebs Kubota, Middle Tennessee's preferred equipment dealer. Columbia, Franklin, and Murfreesboro. Online at KrebsKubota.com.
Music City will be rocking June 23rd through the 25th with a different sound, the sound of NASCAR.
Start your engine!
The Ally 400 is back at Nashville Superspeedway, and this year, it's a night race. NASCAR in Nashville. It's guitars and fast cars under the lights. Visit NashvilleSuperspeedway.com to get your tickets for the triple header weekend, including the Ally 400, Tennessee Lottery 250, and the Rackley Roofing 200 today.
Buffalo Bill's Center of the West in Cody, Wyoming welcomes you as you enter Yellowstone Park's East entrance. 5 museums in one, including the fantastic Whitney Western Art Museum. Welcome to the West. Buffalo Bill's Center of the West, Cody, Wyoming.
2 of the biggest names in comedy are coming.
Motherfucker threw a banana peel at me. It was premeditated. You can tell.
Dave Chappelle and Joe Rogan together.
We are weird, because what we are really is we're some weird super organism.
This Friday, Bridgestone Arena. Dave Chappelle and Joe Rogan.
It's like, you didn't eat that banana recently, motherfucker. You had that shit waiting on me.
Tickets are on sale now at livenation.com.
The offseason is in full swing, but there's no slowing down ESPN's Teron Davenport.
The flow of information.
He talks the talk.
Spears gives you that guy that can still hit the home run.
And walks the walk.
As a run blocker, he's going to murder a linebacker at the second level.
On Everything Titans, TD is on Mondays at 1, Thursdays at 3, Friday mornings at 8, and anytime on the Talkin' with TD podcast. TD is on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app. This is Michelle and Junie.
Really? That's fantastic.
Presented by Superbook Sports on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and on the Game Nashville app.
Michelle and Junie, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Michelle Knezovic, Junie Riddle, Nick Frazier with us today on this Saturday morning. Hope everybody's having a great Saturday morning today, enjoying some nice weather. But we've got a lot to talk about on the sports front. Finally, minicamp will be next week. 3 days of it. I'll be out there every single day. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Junie. A lot of storylines. I think one of the interesting things that just got up with Easton Freeze was that the kicker that he has been looking out for, it's Trey Wolf out of Texas Tech. He said he's a big guy. He's got the distance. He's got to work on the accuracy a little bit more. But, that's a position group we highlight so often, the wide receiver group, the offensive line, quarterback, just everything. But, kicker is a very important position that this team needs to figure out right now.
I mean, I totally agree. And NFL is completely different than the college game because I would say almost 80% of games come down to the final possession on whether or not the team that's down, that has the ball, can they go down and get that score. And with the Tennessee Titans last year, you couldn't trust Bullock anywhere from 45 plus. I felt like it was like a 50-50 when you got past that range. And in the league, if you're not consistently kicking 50 to 53-yard field goals, then you're just not doing it for your team. And this team has struggled with kickers for the last, I feel like, 3 or 4 seasons to where they just can't find a guy that gives you that consistency. And it's cost them games. And, I mean, you look at the Chargers game last year, missing a 50-yarder there in an indoor field. I mean, that should be a gimme, and that could have tied up the game. I mean, you look at the New York Giants, the amazing pass to Kyle Phillips that really looked like it was going to, seal the win for the Titans on opening day. It was a 47-yard field goal that he flat out just blundered. So it comes down to the kicking game a lot. And you look at, teams like the Ravens, they have consistent kicking. And how many times have we seen Justin Tucker come in the clutch and give them wins that they necessarily shouldn't have had? So it's really important, and I think it's a very overrated position, but, or I should say underrated. I'm sorry, not overrated, but underrated, and especially with the Titans and their lack of offense, only averaging 17 points last year?
Yeah.
They need all the points that they can get.
So this is going to be an off-the-wall one, and I understand the reason they're moving on from a Randy Bullock is they want to be able to, well, first off, we've talked about the inconsistencies. Not once you get, post 49 yards, his inconsistencies, but a guy who's actually out there right now, he's going to be more expensive than a rookie guy, but Robbie Gould isn't with a team yet.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He's also getting up there in age.
He is.
But in San Francisco,
he
was still kicking at a pretty high level. I mean, I would definitely say it's better than Randy Bullock, but with the Titans, I guess they're so sick and tired of year in and year out of try and find somebody that's comparable for this position, that they would rather try and find a younger guy that they can go with for years to come than a Robbie Gould who, I would say maybe only has 1 or 2 years left in the tank. Because he's just getting to that age. And, we saw it with Adam Vinatieri. Like, he was playing in his early 40s. I think he was like 43 or 44, something like that. And all of a sudden, right? in the 2019 year, he just completely fell off, like missing 30-some-odd yard field goals, missed like 10-plus kicks in that season. And the greatest, somebody who we consider one of the greatest kickers of all time just suddenly fell off. So Robbie Gould's kind of getting close to that, and I think that's why he left San Francisco and why they moved on from him. So I just think the Titans really would want to get a young guy. And if this Trey Wolff is the real deal, that could be the option that they're looking for, not wasting a draft pick on a kicker and getting a guy with some upside.
Yeah, and I think the important point to mention, Junnie, and I think you laid it out really nicely there, is this isn't the college game, right? A lot of these NFL games, no matter what your roster looks like, we see so many games throughout the entire NFL season that really do come down to an extra point or a field goal. And especially with this Titans team and the way it's constructed, it's not a crazy threat on offense. They're a very, gritty defense, run first team. You hope this year that average a game maybe could be about 24 points a game, like 24 to 27, and even 27 is kind of high, but you would ideally like to see this team in that 24 range and winning games like that. But when you talk about a team who, your running back, I think, was your leading player in receiving touchdowns in Dontrell Hilliard last year, and Mike Vrabel isn't this a crazy stat? Mike Vrabel has more receiving touchdowns than anyone on the team.
I saw that from A to Z Sports, and that's pretty
wild.
Baffling to say. But the one thing that kind of gives me hope, and it was something that I wasn't really thinking about, was I went on, we just had Easton Freeze on, and I went on his Hot Reads podcast with him earlier this week, and something that he kind of touched on was maybe necessarily the wide receiving core isn't as talented as people would want it to be, but it's the receiving options that they have. Chig Okonkwo is expected to come in, and I believe he could potentially put up top 10 tight end numbers this year with what he can do and how much he did last year on the limited amount of looks he got. And then you talk about like a Tajay Spears. I know everybody's worked out about the ACL, but going back and watching this guy on tape, like, they can motion him out and put him into the slot. And he is a really good route runner. And I feel like coming out of the backfield and being that third down back, the change of pace back from Derrick Henry, I feel like he could be a lot more in the passing game than what people expect. So, just encompassing, looking at what Kyle Phillips can be, he added on some weight. Chig, Traylon Burks taking that next step, and also having Tajay Spears coming out of the backfield. I truly believe what Easton was saying about the total receiving options you have, not just necessarily the receiving position, but the options that you have on this team aren't necessarily as bad as everybody is making them out to be.
No, and I think that's an interesting point, Junnie, because, okay, don't just look at the receiving group. Look at that. Look at Tajay Spears, who is, a dynamic running back who can also be a factor in the receiving game. We talk about Traylon Burks taking a step. Well, Chig Okonkwo taking a step from year 1 to year 2. You got the rookie and Josh Wiley. And Chig Okonkwo said at the podium the other day, he's like, Josh Wiley is so good at route running and understands routes really, really well. And as a rookie coming in, that's really beneficial for them. Like, what type of role could he play in this? He's got a good catch radius. He's a big tight end guy. So, how does he factor into this? We talked about speedy Kyle Phillips. Hopefully the injury bug is in the Titans' favor this year. What can he be like? Because we did see, that Ryan Tannehill felt the most comfortable with him coming out of training camp last year. They had the most chemistry. So it really will be fascinating, especially next week with minicamp, to really just see, just more chemistry and building together. And then obviously, training camp will be here before we know it, and it'll be exciting to follow them all along. But coming up next, Junnie and I and Nick and I, we always love to do our best bets of the weekend. Coming up next on Junnie and Michelle, 102.5, 106.3 in the Game Nashville app.
Sometimes it's good to be loud.
This is the NFL.
Especially when you're Jared Stillman.
That's where we are.
He's not afraid to say what's on his mind each and every day.
That was embarrassing. I don't care if you're a rookie. That was embarrassing.
Stillman and Company. Weekdays at 2 on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Whatever your destination in life, you can get there easier with a checking account from F&M Bank. At F&M, our checking accounts give you the tools you need to manage your money well, like our smart free checking account that's actually free. Because sometimes the basics are more than enough, making lives better by making banking easier. Come see us at one of our branches or online at myfmbank.com. F&M Bank. Banking made easy. On purpose. Member FDIC.
Interest rates may be high everywhere else, but now at Genesis Diamonds, you can get 0 interest on any purchase. 5 years, 0 interest financing with nothing down. Beautiful eternity bands, 1-carat diamond stud earrings, and more. Starting at only $50 a month. At Genesis, we are always looking for ways to do more for our amazing customers. So don't miss this. 5 years, 0 interest financing. Imagine that $6,000 designer ring is just $100 a month. We'll even finance the sales tax. Now through July 1st only. And only at Genesis Diamonds, Green Hills and Cool Springs. On approved credit, see store for details.
Hey, it's John Tesh. You want to know how to get better rates, better coverage, and better service on your home and auto insurance? Work with Zander Insurance. I know it's a big promise, but this team delivers. They've been around for almost 100 years and have earned the privilege of representing dozens of insurance companies so they can shop, compare, and find you the best options available. More options mean more savings, and in many cases, better coverage. But it doesn't stop there. Each year, they review your coverage to make sure your rates stay competitive. Nobody else does that. And when it comes to service, just check out their ratings. Zander is one of the top agencies in the industry, and they earned that spot with their commitment to making sure their clients are taken care of like family. That's what sets them apart. Go to Zander.com for quick online quotes or call 800-356-1780 for that personal touch that you've been missing.
Tuning into the baseball game, monitoring the incoming storm, catching your favorite talk show. These are just a few of the reasons more than 80 million Americans depend on AM radio each month. And did you know AM radio is the backbone of the emergency alert system, keeping us safe in dangerous times? It's reliable, free, and public safety depends on it. Text AM to 52886 and tell Congress we need AM radio in cars. This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters.
The Stanley Cup Final lives here. Which team will hoist Lord Stanley's Cup in 2023? Follow all the action on Smashville's home for postseason hockey. 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app. This is Michelle and Junnie.
Well, thank you so much.
Presented by Superbook Sports on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and on the Game Nashville app.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money.
Dollar, dollar. Dollar, dollar. Ching, ching, bling, bling. Got the chatter.
Every Saturday at 10:45, you know what time it is. We love to give you our best bets of the weekend. Welcome back in 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Michelle and Junnie. Michelle Knezovic, Junnie Riddle, Nick Frazier with us live from our Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Studios this morning. We finally have our final two teams in the NHL and in the NBA. The Denver Nuggets take game 1 at home. So Denver's up 1-0. Game 2 of the NBA Finals between the Heat and the Nuggets will be tomorrow. The Nuggets an 8.5-point favorite. We also have game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals between the Panthers and the Golden Knights today. The Golden Knights, they'll be at home, a 1.5-point favorite. But as exciting as it is, guys, that we have our final two teams, it is kind of bittersweet because the sports are just starting to really thin at this time of year.
Yeah, it's time to get into baseball. So, I started off, watching the Pirates this year. They had a really great April, and Ryan from Chicago, he said, "Dude, it's just April. Just wait." And he was right. So I'm hoping after an awful Pirates May that when these Stanley Cup Finals and NBA Finals that the Pirates start to pick it up again, because I don't know what else I'm gonna watch.
Well, you can watch. We'll be in training camp, so all the videos from training camp will be what you can watch and just get hyped for NFL season or soccer.
And no, wait, Michelle, you're gonna like this one. The WNBA.
Oh,
you can
yes.
watch the WNBA. Me, I'm a diehard Indiana Fever guy. They take on the Aces tomorrow, which the Aces are right now. They're probably the best team in the WNBA. So I'll be watching, maybe dabbling a little money on that one. Maybe a Fever upset. I don't know. I'm just thinking about it.
Ooh. Are you going to give a shout out to your favorite player?
Oh, Nalissa Smith. Yeah, Gotta love some Nalissa Smith, number 2 overall pick, averaging a double-double this year. She's killing it.
Mm-hmm. her and Aaliyah Boston, the dynamic duo. Wow, I can't speak. Those two women, pretty incredible watching them really, really gel together this year.
It'll be the best.
Number 2 overall from Baylor, and obviously Aaliyah Boston from South Carolina this year. So
Best
those
young front court.
those two young guys or young girls, they're exciting to watch. Sorry, Junnie, didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, you're good. I said they're going to be the best young front court in the NBA. Power forward, center. They're gonna dominate as they get a little bit older. So I got some personal bias there, but yeah, it is what it is. So just
That's okay.
had to
We
shout
got to
out the
root for our
fever.
people.
Absolutely.
We got to root for our people. You're right, though. WNBA is also getting underway, but we will start, guys, in the NBA. Denver, an 8.5-point favorite for Game 2, which will be tomorrow. I'm going to take the Heat plus the 8.5. I think, when you looked at last game, the Nuggets ended up winning by 11, but the Heat were getting the shots they wanted. But guys like Duncan Robinson, Caleb Martin, they weren't falling. They haven't had a bad shooting performance like that in a while, really throughout this entire playoff stint. So I'm going to take the Heat plus the 8.5. I do think, though, Denver will win Game 2 at home. They haven't lost a game at home in the playoffs so far. Junnie?
So I'm trying to look at this on Superbook Sports, but it hasn't locked down, which is kind of scaring me a bit because I feel like something might be going down to where, they're changing the odds because there might be some news that we haven't heard about yet. So I'm going to a different outlet right now. Not going to give any free ads. No free ads. Okay, so this other outlet still has it at 8.5. So with that news, I'm going to take it at face value that there have been no significant changes to lineups or injury or anything like that. Mm-hmm. I like the Nuggets with the points, 8.5 again tonight. Both teams tomorrow. Yes, you're right. Both teams did not shoot well at all in Game 1. So the over-under is at 215. I like the over in this game. I think both teams shoot a little bit better, and we're going to see a little bit more of a high-scoring game. So I'm really confident about the over in this game, but, the spread, you just never know when the Heat are going to, start to light it up. Jimmy Butler could have an all-time game, but the way Denver has played at home, I'm just leaning more towards Denver's going to win big again. They're the deeper team, they're the better team, and they just play better in Denver. So give me the Nuggets, and I'm laying the 8.5 on it.
Nick?
I am right there with you both. I'm going to take Miami plus 8.5. He said Denver. I'm going to go Miami plus 8.5 due to the fact that this is a bounce-back game for the Heat. Obviously, Martin and Strus did not, hit from the field really well. I think it was 0 for 12, if I'm not mistaken.
I think one of them hit one, but it was still it was like 1 of 17 combined between the two of them.
It's still ridiculous.
It was a rough shooting night.
Exactly. I think they do have a bounce-back game. I believe Martin gets 2 threes tomorrow. That is my lock. You can hammer that. It's minus 140 over 1.5 threes. Take that. But, yeah, Miami plus 8.5.
I'm also looking at, I like the under actually for the 214.5 for this one. I think, Miami is going to have to be in Denver's face. Nobody really has an answer for Jokic. You just kind of got to, tame him if that's even possible. Really quick, guys, before we go into the NHL, can we just talk about how incredible Nikola Jokic has been and how he truly is? He could have won MVP again this year. He is, I think, before this series, after they beat the Lakers, he was averaging 35, 12, and 14, or like right in those numbers. His passing ability and his court vision. And if you were to look at him on the side of the street and you would compare him to he just doesn't have that the big arms or anything, but the guy is
your tall average
really
Joe.
Incredible.
I definitely look at Jokic as the greatest passing big man of all time. Fundamentally, he kind of reminds me of like a Tim Duncan. He's not flashy. He doesn't have the ultra built, sculpted body that we see some of these NBA players have. But, he has like the fundamental touch and calm presence like a Tim Duncan, but has the passing ability of no big man that I have ever seen. He is truly a special talent.
I was going to say, like, he passes, like you talk about like Larry Bird or Magic, but Magic was a point guard. Like, his passing ability for a true big man, I mean, it really is incredible. Like, once he gets that ball over his head and his ability to just like anticipate where his guys on the team are going to be and hit them. And, I'm picturing this one play in my head with Michael Porter Jr. of just knowing exactly where he's going to be. And he throws the ball there and he just knows that Michael will be there. I mean, he is very fun to watch. And the infamous story with him is that he got drafted during a Taco Bell commercial.
It's crazy stuff. You don't see it a lot in the NBA. Those guys are usually picked somewhere in the first round, if not the top 10. So to see a guy like that, a second rounder, really show out. I mean, it is truly an anomaly, and he's amazing to watch.
So if you haven't watched any of that game will be tomorrow. Okay, switching over to the NHL, game 1 will be tonight in Vegas between the Vegas Golden Knights and the Panthers. Neither of them have won a Stanley Cup ever. Neither franchise has won a Stanley Cup. So I think that's always pretty cool when you at least it'll be the first one for both franchise. Vegas is a 1.5 point favorite at home. I'm actually going to take the Panthers on the puck line tonight. I know they've been sitting for a bit, but I think it'll be a big win in Vegas for the Panthers tonight. So give me the Panthers on the money line. Junnie?
So I'm going to take the Panthers on the spread. I think it's a 1-goal game, but I'm not so certain on whether or not the Panthers can go into Vegas and get a win, but I'm going to take them on the spread. I think it's a 1-goal game. I'm also going to smash the over. The over under is 5.5. I think it's going to hit the over, and also I just have this feeling Matthew Tkachuk is going to have a big game. I would dabble on some money that he scores 2 goals. I don't know. I have a feeling. I just think, Florida wants to come out swinging in this series, and if they can come in and steal a game 1 in Vegas, that could really turn the odds. So I like Matthew Tkachuk to have a big game tonight.
I am right there with you, Junnie and Michelle. I do like Florida tonight. I'm going to take them on the money line at plus 110 where I have it. I do like Matthew Tkachuk to get anytime goal scorers plus 165. To get 2 goals, I honestly was thinking about it, but at the same time, I think 1's enough for me. I'm going to go Matthew Tkachuk, goal scorer, and Panthers money line.
Okay, what about the over-under? I'm also with Junnie on this one. I'm going to smash the over. I think this is a high-scoring game. So give me the over, and then obviously since we picked the Panthers on the money line, I like them plus the 1.5 as well. Nick, over-under on this one?
Yeah, I really want to say under for some reason, but I could see where the goals could come into play. People are probably thinking, what's this guy thinking? I mean, I'll go over. For the sake of conversation and just, representation, I'll take the over.
Okay, and quickly before we get to Nick Frazier's NSC parlay, game 5 for the Firebirds and the Admirals. It is in Milwaukee. Ads are a 1.5 point favorite. Give me the Ads minus the 1.5 to cover that. I think they win. They win by 2 tonight. Junnie?
I got the Admirals too. I like the over in this game. I mean, these games have been ultra high scoring. I think they've scored more than 6 goals combined in every single game of this series. So the over will hit in this one. I'm just feeling the over today. But I think the Admirals know that they got to take advantage of this because game 6 and 7 will be at the Coachella Firebirds home ice. So I think they take that and they're going to take their chance on getting 1 of 2 in either game 6 or 7.
Nick, and then give us your NSC parlay after this.
I will be taking the Coachella Valley at plus 1.5 just because it's just one of those games where it's going to be tight. I'm going to go there. That's going to be my pick.
Okay, and what do you got for your NSC parlay this week?
And as for the NSC parlay, they're playing FC Dallas tonight in Dallas. This is going to be an interesting matchup for Nashville SC due to the fact they've had a little bit of time off to recoup, get the legs fresh. Hani Mukhtar loves playing against Chicago and also loves playing against Dallas. I'm going to be taking Hani Mukhtar anytime goal scorer tonight. Nashville SC is plus 200 on the money line. If you want to play it safe, you could do a double chance. You could do that. Okay. I do like Hani Mukhtar to get 2 shots on goal tonight. And to be, a little extra with it, you could do this. Shaq Moore, anytime assist. Schaffelberg, if he gets to start, 2 shots on goal, over 1.5. Nashville SC money line, and Hani Mukhtar anytime goal scorer. That is plus 9,151. Put 10 on it. That wins you almost $1,000.
Ooh, okay. We got a big one. Nick will give you your NSC parlays every Saturday at 10:45, along with our best bets of the weekend. What a great show. What a great Saturday. A lot to recap, and we'll have a lot to talk about next Saturday. And you know where to find us every Saturday, 9 to 11 a.m. Michelle and Junnie on 102.5, 106.3 in the Game Nashville app.
102.5 and 106.